many of you have ever done Shinrin-yoku? Anybody? Oh, maybe you don't speak Japanese. Well, let me translate. Okay, so it means forest bathing, defined as spending time among trees. It's been considered a form of preventative medicine, started in Japan, since the 1980s, when researchers at Nagano found that the practice lessens stress, boosts immunity, and lowers blood pressure. Subsequent studies showed that soaking up the forest environment, still atmosphere, the scenery, the gentle crunching of twigs underfoot, reduces cortisol, the stress hormone, and activates parasympathetic self-healing, the nervous system. These findings paved the way for other holistic disciplines, including today's forest medicine. Has anybody done forest bathing? All right. Okay, so before we talk about the hidden life of trees and the forests, let's look at a broader perspective that we have as Unitarian Universalists. The seventh principle, the Unitarian seventh principle, which we affirm and promote, the seven principles, which we hold as strong values and moral guides. The seventh principle is, anybody know? Okay. Okay, well, thank you, Bird. And let me go ahead and just kind of expand on it a bit. Yes, the respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. It may be a way of coming to fully embrace something greater than ourselves. According to Reverend Forrest Gilmore, the interdependent web may be expressed as the spirit of life, the ground of all being, the oneness of all existence. The seventh principle is an ethnocentric statement. It doesn't say the interdependent web of humanity, nor even just of life, nor does it say the interdependent web of all existence of which we are the stewards or for which we are to dominate. It asserts an ecocentric egalitarianism. So if we truly believe this and understand its implications, we need to become aware of the many ways we continue to view ourselves as separate from nature. Now let's kind of go back and look at a different perspective and compare it. Like it's a bit historical, but I think it exists maybe with some religions. Okay, so historically, Aristotle first came up with the concept of the great chain of being, that hierarchy that puts humans at the top and even certain humans above other humans. And in this model, each level serves the higher level. Everything and everybody except those at the top have instrumental value only. It's only those at the top that have inherent value. Well then, Descartes, the father of modern philosophy, said only humans have souls and that animals are merely machines and so may be used by us. I don't know, would your animals agree with that? I'm going to say particularly like cats. I know that would not work with mine. Anyways, so other classical philosophers and theologians pretty much went along with Descartes. But what did it really mean? What are some of the implications? Well, based on that idea of hierarchy, rights have been denied not only to plants and animals, but to women, children, people of other races, and more. The ones deciding the criteria have been those in the most privileged position, and they have decided with whom they want to share their privileges. Our social justice efforts, whether feminism, anti-racism, class struggles, or what have you, have taken the approach of seeking to extend the rights of the most privileged group to others. And the way they go about that is they show how the group in question is like the privileged group and so entitled to the same rights. Well, don't you think that's kind of backward? Okay, I do. I think it's very backward. We need to start with the whole, not the part. If we acknowledge that we are only a part of an interdependent web of existence, we need to take existence itself or need to make existence itself as the criteria. The world does not exist for the sake of humans. Ultimate value adheres to the whole, and each and every being that comprises it has intrinsic worth. It also sort of promotes that idea of human specialness. Ever since Aristotle, philosophers have been concerned to demonstrate in the most convincing manner possible that human beings are significantly different from all other forms of life. Well, it wasn't enough to demonstrate that human beings were unique, because like every species is unique, but they had to rather show that humans are uniquely unique, that our noble gifts set us definitely apart and above the rest of the animate world. Such demonstrations were, we may suspect, needed to justify increasing manipulation and exploitation of non-human nature by and for humankind. Okay, well, now let's get back to that idea of ecological egalitarianism. There is certainly an ethical imperative in that. We are to treat all beings as ends in themselves, not to use them for our ends. It entails respect for all life and for all existence. All existence is divine, and all are equal in their divinity. Well, there have been a few people over the years that have expressed that egocentric view. However, that view really took off more in popularity in the 1960s with the publication of Rachel Carson's Silent Spring. The science of ecology looks at nature as integrated systems as opposed to collections of individuals. And ecology really undermines that traditional hierarchical view, the traditional ways of understanding the human-environment relationship. So it forces us to reevaluate the dominant paradigm of Western thought regarding nature. It rejects the hierarchy of beings that makes animate higher than inanimate, animal higher than plant, human higher than other animals, and males higher than females. This new worldview requires us to make a radical paradigm shift. It requires us to give up the hierarchy. At its most radical, the new paradigm insists on ecological egalitarianism, that all are created equal. This includes non-animate creatures like rivers and rocks. It's an interdependent web of all existence. Humanity is simply part of a vast interdependent web, and the divine permeates the whole. It is only by realizing that we are not separate but deeply connected to the whole that we really realize the divine within ourselves. It's by living in harmony with the whole that we realize our greatest potential. Well, how then do we really cultivate this ecological consciousness? It involves working on ourselves. The process involves becoming more aware of the actuality of rocks, wolves, trees, rivers, etc. The cultivation of the insight that everything is connected. Cultivating ecological consciousness is a process of learning, for example, to appreciate silence and solitude and rediscovering how to listen. It's learning how to be more receptive and trusting of a universe that does provide. To affirm our seventh principle leads to a humble recognition that we are not the center or the top, and opens us up to awe and wonder of all existence. So now we will have Catherine Lundergran come and kind of fill us in more about trees, how they communicate, and some of the things that we know about trees.
Good morning. When Karen and I began planning this service, we discussed recent news stories and books we were aware of that mentioned methods of communication and cooperation among trees, and the role of mother trees in nurturing younger trees. When Karen suggested a focus on what we can learn from trees, my first thought was, we don't need trees to tell us it's good to communicate and cooperate with others. On further reflection, I think maybe we should focus on what trees do for us and what we owe them in return. I've long been an admirer of trees. As a child, I read a biography of Louisa May Alcott and was fascinated by a description of her writing stories while perched in the branches of a tree. Unfortunately, my efforts to emulate her did not result in any best-selling novels. Most of us can readily name several benefits that trees provide to humans. A source of shade and cooling, a source of beauty from spring blossoms, summer greenery, all fall foliage, a source of raw materials for houses, furniture, boats, other things, a source of food, such as fruits and nuts, maple syrup, and lastly, but probably most importantly, removing CO2 from the air to help ameliorate climate change. What we have not been so aware of is how trees help each other. When we look at a tree, we don't often think that there is as much matter underground as what we see above ground. Tree roots go deep and wide and forge connections with each other through a huge network of fungal strands called mycelia. These mycelia may stretch for miles and miles, connecting many, many trees. And this symbiotic relationship between the mycelia and the trees provides water exchange and nutrient exchange and awareness of above ground dangers, such as attack from insects and disease organisms. All the trees can then produce phytochemicals to help ward off the attacks and protect the health of the entire forest. Older and bigger mother trees can funnel younger to younger seedlings with more shallow roots that are unable to tap into the water table where the deep, deep roots of the mother trees can go. Let's talk a little bit about the biology of all this happens, how all this happens. Photosynthesis, we've all heard of. It's the process which trees take in carbon dioxide and water and produce glucose or sugar and oxygen. The glucose is then used as a source of energy for all the metabolic functions of plants. Like humans, plants have a circulatory system. Xylem tissue connects water and mineral nutrients from the roots to the shoots and the leaves. Phloem transports the soluble organic compounds that are produced by photosynthesis to the roots of the plant. The underground mycelial strands connecting the roots are the the trees are able then to help distribute the nutrients and the water to themselves, other fungi, and other trees. Like humans, trees depend on each other to survive. Since we know that trees are communicating and cooperating in unseen ways, maybe it will help us to realize that in our own interactions with other people, there are often factors working for us that we cannot see. At this time, if anybody has any comments about their interaction or appreciation with trees, I'd invite you to share those. And don't talk about a tree falling on your house. Okay. At this time, we will take up our offering and invite you to share your gifts with others.